I was standing outside my daughter's house in Chicago when my phone buzzed. It was Detective Harris. His voice was low, urgent. "Linda, don't go inside. The man your daughter married, he isn't who he says he is." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Through the window, I saw Emily, my only child, laughing as she set the dinner table with her husband. A picture of happiness, one I had helped pay for with the last of my savings. But in the next few minutes, that picture would shatter, and the life my daughter thought she built was about to collapse. Asterisk, asterisk, if you've ever felt dismissed, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, or maybe you've experienced the deepest loneliness, or that unbearable pain of losing those you love most, share it. Leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because maybe the next story will remind you of your own strength. Asterisk, asterisk, Chicago. Evenings always had a way of pressing on me, gray skies folding into amber streetlights, the city humming just outside my daughter's quiet neighborhood. I sat in my car at the curb, smoothing my skirt, rehearsing what I might say when I walked in. Tonight was supposed to be simple: dinner with Emily and Daniel, a mother visiting her newlywed daughter. Nothing more. Then my phone lit up. Detective Harris. He never called me directly. He worked with Robert, my attorney, and only reached out when something was truly urgent. My throat tightened as I pressed accept. "Linda," his voice was clipped, hurried. "Don't go inside." My hand froze on the door handle. "Why? What's going on?" "It's Daniel," he said, dropping his voice lower as if someone might overhear him through the phone. "He isn't who he says he is." For a beat, I couldn't breathe. The words ricocheted in my head, refusing to settle. "Not who he says he is. That's impossible," I whispered. "I know my son-in-law. He's a good man. He loves Emily." A pause. Then, "Mrs. Walker, please, just listen to me. Don't alert him. Don't call her. Just wait until I get there." But even as he spoke, my eyes drifted toward the window of the house. Through the glass, I saw Emily moving about the kitchen, her laughter carrying faintly into the night. She looked happy. She looked safe. Daniel was beside her, stirring something on the stove, flashing that easy smile that had charmed all of us from the start. A normal dinner scene, too normal to perfect. Inside, my heart wrestled with itself. Could I believe Harris? Could I believe that the man who'd toasted Emily at their wedding, who'd shaken my hand with steady confidence, was a lie? I remembered the vows, the way Emily's eyes shone when she said "I do." I remembered Daniel telling me, "Family is everything." And yet, Harris's voice had carried the kind of weight you don't fake, the kind of urgency that only comes when danger is real. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Fear crept up my spine, but so did something fiercer, a mother's instinct. If there was even a chance my daughter was in danger, I couldn't ignore it. I glanced at the front door, the warm glow spilling from behind it. My chest ached with dread. Whatever I was about to walk into would not be dinner. It would be a reckoning. And as I stepped out of the car, one thought pounded in my head. In a few minutes, my daughter's perfect marriage would begin to crumble. I was the one who had to break it open. Asterisk, asterisk. My name is Linda Walker. I'm 66 years old. A retired English teacher who spent 3 decades at a public high school just outside Chicago. I taught Shakespeare, poetry, and all the messy ways words can reveal the truth of the human heart. You'd think someone like me, someone who'd spent her life parsing motives in literature, would recognize a fraud when she saw one. But the truth is, I didn't. 15 years ago, cancer took my husband, John. The house we built together felt like a mausoleum after that. The garden I once loved turned into a jungle I couldn't tame. Nights were the hardest. The silence so heavy it seemed to crush me. Emily, my only child, had already launched into her career, and I told myself not to bother her with my loneliness. That's what mothers do, isn't it? We shield our children, even from our own emptiness. When Emily met Daniel, I thought it was divine intervention. He was polished, attentive, the kind of man who pulled out her chair at dinner and kissed her forehead in the middle of conversations. To me, he looked like a miracle wrapped in a tailored suit. The first time Daniel called me Mom Walker, my throat tightened. It had been years since anyone used the word mom with such warmth. I wanted to believe in him. No, more than that, I needed to. Because behind the confidence I showed Emily, I was tired of paying bills alone, tired of eating dinners for one, tired of hearing the clock tick in an empty house. So when they came to me, hands clasped, eyes shining, and asked if I might consider selling my house to help them with wedding expenses, I didn't hesitate. The house had grown too large for me anyway. The roof needed fixing. The basement flooded every spring. Daniel leaned forward, voiced soft and convincing. Linda, you deserve to be closer to Emily. Let us start this new chapter together. It sounded reasonable. It sounded loving. And more importantly, it gave me a role in their happiness. I sold the house I'd lived in for 35 years, the house where I'd rocked Emily to sleep, the house where John and I shared every holiday. I gave them $60,000 from the sale, telling myself it was an investment in family, in love, in security. Looking back, I can see it clearly. Daniel didn't just charm me, he studied me. He knew exactly where my wounds were, and he pressed his hand against them gently, pretending to heal, while quietly carving deeper. But I wasn't thinking about any of that the night I stood outside their home. I only knew this. The man I had welcomed as a son might have built his entire life with my daughter on a foundation of lies. Asterisk, asterisk, if you had asked me 6 months ago what happiness looked like, I would have pointed to Emily's wedding. It was held in a sunlit chapel downtown, ivory ribbons draped over every pew. I remember standing at the back, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles went white, watching my daughter glide down the aisle in lace and pearls. Daniel stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his eyes glistening as though he were seeing a miracle approach. When their vows began, I felt the lump in my throat swell. I promise to protect you, Daniel said, his voice breaking just enough to feel genuine, to honor you, to build a life where you will never feel alone. Emily's smile in that moment could have lit the entire city. My girl, the one I had worried might never find someone to match her fierce heart, had found a partner who seemed to cherish her every breath. The reception that followed was something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in golden light, a jazz quartet played softly, and glasses of champagne never seemed too empty. Friends toasted to their future, colleagues marveled at how lucky they were, and even I, cautious, as mothers often are, began to believe that maybe the universe had finally given Emily the happiness she deserved. When Daniel took the microphone and raised a glass, his words wrapped the room in warmth. To my wife, he said, turning toward Emily, who has given me not just love, but family, and to my new mother-in-law Linda, who welcomed me with more grace than I ever imagined. Tonight, I stand not just as a husband, but as a son. The applause was thunderous, but it was my heart that roared the loudest. A son. After years of emptiness, someone had spoken those words to me again. Later that night, as I slipped an envelope with a check into Daniel's hand, money from the house I had sold, I felt nothing but certainty. It's for both of you, I told him. Start your life the way you dream. He pressed the envelope to his chest and whispered, "We'll make you proud, Mom." Looking back now, the memory is painted in deceptive light, champagne bubbles, soft laughter, the sparkle of Emily's wedding band under the chandeliers. At the time, it all looked like joy. But beneath the music and the promises, a darker melody had already begun to play, and I had no idea how quickly that perfect harmony would twist into a storm. At first, the little changes seemed harmless. Newlyweds redecorate, I told myself. They create a home together, blending tastes, shedding old things for new memories. But the first time I walked into Emily and Daniel's new apartment, something inside me shifted. The living room gleamed like a catalog spread, sleek leather sofas, chrome accents, abstract paintings with bold red strokes. Beautiful, yes. But it felt cold. What struck me hardest wasn't what was there, but what wasn't. Emily's watercolor landscapes, the ones she had painted during her college years, were nowhere to be seen. The framed photo of her and her father fishing at Lake Michigan, gone. Even the antique quilt I had sewn when she was 16 was folded into a storage bin. "Where's your painting of the oak tree?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Emily glanced at Daniel before answering. Daniel thought it didn't match the modern vibe. Her voice was light, almost dismissive, but I caught the faint hesitation, the way her eyes flickered down, as though she was apologizing without words. Later, over dinner, I noticed how the conversation flowed. Daniel spoke smoothly about real estate markets, investment strategies, the latest trends in tech stocks. Emily laughed at his jokes, nodded when he made a point. But when I asked about her own projects at work, she barely got 2 sentences in before Daniel cut in. "She's being modest," he said, laying a hand on hers. "Emily's thriving at the hospital, but she worries too much. I keep telling her, relax, let me handle the stressful stuff." Emily smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Driving home that night, The city lights streaked across my windshield, and my mind buzzed with unease. The apartment didn't look like Emily's home, it looked like Daniel's stage. And my daughter, once so outspoken, seemed to be shrinking into the background. Still, I fought the thought. Maybe I was overprotective, seeing shadows where none existed. After all, hadn't Daniel shown me nothing but respect? Hadn't he called me Mom with such warmth? But then came the money. One evening, as we cleared the table, Daniel leaned casually against the counter. Linda, I've been thinking. Emily and I want to invest in a small property, something long-term. It's a great opportunity. If you had any extra savings, even a small contribution, it could really help secure Emily's future. The words were coated in charm, but underneath I felt a tremor. I laughed it off, saying I needed what I had left from my retirement. Daniel smiled, unfazed. Of course, just thought I'd ask. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake the image of Emily's eyes darting toward him, almost as if checking for approval before she spoke. It was the first time a thought, sharp and unwelcome, broke through my denial. What if Daniel wasn't protecting her at all? What if he was erasing her, piece by piece? Asterisk. It was a Tuesday afternoon, when the truth came crashing through the quiet of my apartment. I was ironing my navy blue dress, the one Emily always said made me look distinguished, when my phone buzzed. The name flashing on the screen stopped me cold. Robert Mitchell, my attorney for more than 15 years. He never called outside of office hours, not once. Robert, I answered quickly. Is everything all right? His voice was tense. Clipped. Linda, are you sitting down? My stomach tightened. I perched on the edge of the bed, the iron still hissing faintly in the background. You're scaring me. What's wrong? Is this about the will revisions we talked about? No, he said, his tone dropping lower. This is about Daniel. My breath caught. Daniel, my son-in-law. Linda, he's not who he claims to be. The words seemed to hang in the air, thick as smoke. I felt my chest squeeze, my pulse drum in my ears. That's ridiculous, I said quickly, almost laughing. I've known him for over a year. He works in real estate. He grew up in Texas, lost his parents in a car accident. He told us everything. He's devoted to Emily. Robert hesitated, then continued. My investigator checked into his background as part of your insurance paperwork. There are no records of Daniel Carter working at the firms he listed. No college transcripts under that name. In fact, no Daniel Carter exists with his date of birth. The iron slipped from my hands and clattered against the floor, a sharp metallic thud echoing in the small apartment. Outside the window, the maple tree swayed gently in the wind, utterly ordinary, mocking me with its calm. That my voice was a whisper. That can't be right. I'm afraid it is, Robert said. And Linda, there's more. We found bank transfers, large sums moving to an account in New York, tied to another identity. I don't want to overwhelm you, but this man has been linked to prior fraud investigations. I pressed a trembling hand against my forehead. Memories flashed Daniel's smooth words at the wedding, his toast, his easy smile when he asked me for more money. All of it replayed under a cruel new light. What do I do? My voice cracked, the question spilling out like a plea. Go to Emily's house. Right now, Robert urged. Don't warn her, and whatever you do, don't confront him alone. I'll contact Detective Harris to meet you there, but you need to move fast. For a moment, I couldn't move. The walls of my small apartment seemed to close in on me, painted in cheerful yellow that now looked garish, mocking. Had I really sold my home, John's home, Emily's childhood home, to give money to a man who might be a predator? I stood, abruptly, grabbing my keys with shaking hands. As I walked out the door, only one thought burned in my mind. If Robert was right, I hadn't just been foolish, I had handed my daughter over to a stranger. The evening light bathed Emily's house in a soft, golden glow as I pulled into the driveway. From outside, everything looked picture perfect. The manicured lawn, the gleaming BMW parked neatly out front, the faint sound of laughter spilling through the kitchen window. If I hadn't heard Robert's warning, I would have believed I was arriving at a home built on love and trust. I sat there for a long moment, fingers trembling on the steering wheel. Was I about to walk into danger? Was I about to destroy my daughter's world? Finally, I opened the car door. Each step toward the house felt heavier, as though I were dragging chains of doubt behind me. When I rang the bell, Daniel answered, almost instantly, his smile as bright as ever. Mom. Perfect timing, he said, wrapping me in a hug that smelled faintly of cologne and garlic bread. Cassie's making her famous lasagna. His warmth was convincing, too convincing. It almost made me falter. But as his arms closed around me, I felt nothing but ice. Inside, the dining room looked like a magazine spread. The table was set with fine china, crystal glasses catching the flicker of candlelight. White lilies in a tall vase filled the air with sweetness. Every detail screamed perfection. Too perfect, too staged. Emily emerged from the kitchen, cheeks flushed from cooking. "Mom," she said, hurrying to hug me. Her embrace was soft, real, and for a moment I wanted to forget everything and just hold her. But then my eyes caught something, a detail that gnawed at me, the china on the table, my china, the set I had given them as a wedding gift. A piece of my life now dressed up to suit Daniel's world. "You didn't have to go all out," I said carefully, easing into my chair. "We wanted tonight to be special," Daniel replied smoothly, pouring me a glass of white wine. "Family dinners are sacred, don't you think?" Sacred. The word clanged inside me like a false note. As I sipped the wine, I watched them, Emily bustling happily, Daniel moving with calm precision. To anyone else, it would look like a young couple thriving. But I wasn't anyone else. I was a mother, on edge, waiting for the cracks to show. And then, as I glanced at Emily's smile, my chest ached with a thought I couldn't ignore. She doesn't see it. She doesn't see that every gesture, every word, is part of a performance. I forced a smile, though my hands trembled beneath the tablecloth. "Everything smells delicious," I said, my voice steady though my heart pounded. Daniel raised his glass. "To family," he declared. The toast echoed in my ears, but as I lifted my glass, my gaze locked on him. To family, or to conquest. And I knew this dinner was no celebration. It was a stage, and I was here to watch the mask slip. Asterisk, asterisk. The lasagna steamed on my plate, fragrant with herbs, but I could barely taste it. My fork hovered mid-air as I watched Emily laugh at something Daniel whispered. To anyone else, it would look like love. To me, it felt rehearsed. Daniel leaned back in his chair, confidence dripping from every movement. "So, Linda, how's the new apartment? Settling in all right?" I forced a smile. "It's fine, smaller than the house, of course, but manageable." Emily reached across the table, touching my hand. "Mom, I'm glad you're closer now. Daniel was right, it's safer, and we can see each other more." Her words, meant kindly, struck like a knife. They were his words, not hers. I set my fork down, the clink echoing louder than it should have. My voice stayed light, casual, but every syllable was sharp. "Speaking of the house, it's been almost a year since I sold it, hasn't it?" Daniel's smile froze for the briefest second. Emily blinked, caught off guard. I leaned in slightly, meeting Daniel's eyes. "I remember the wedding cost was $47,000. I contributed $35 from the sale, but in total, I gave you $60. So, I've been wondering what happened to the other 15. The room went still. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. Emily frowned, doing the math in her head. "Wait, Mom's right." She turned to Daniel. "Where did the rest go?" Daniel recovered quickly, his laugh smooth but hollow. "Oh, you know how weddings are. Unexpected expenses, honeymoon costs, house improvements and student loans," he added, almost too quickly. My eyes narrowed. "Student loans." Emily's brows knit together. "Daniel, you told me you graduated debt-free, that you worked through school." For a split second, his mask slipped. Panic flickered in his eyes before he covered it with a smile. "I didn't want to burden you with my financial past. It was embarrassing." Emily shook her head, confusion spreading across her face. "But when we applied for the mortgage, you swore you had no debt. That's why we got such a good rate." The silence pressed heavier. I could almost hear Emily's heartbeat across the table. I sipped my wine slowly, forcing calm. "So, Daniel, which story is true?" His jaw tightened. He set down his fork with deliberate care, as though controlling every muscle. "I don't appreciate the interrogation," he said evenly. "This was supposed to be a family dinner, not an audit." Emily's hand trembled as she reached for her glass. She didn't look at him. She looked at me, her eyes wide, searching, afraid to ask the question her lips couldn't form. "Mom, is he lying?" And in that fragile moment, I knew the perfect facade had begun to crack. Asterisk, asterisk. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. Daniel's jaw worked as though he were chewing on silence, his eyes darting between Emily and me. Then, with a forced smile, he pushed back his chair. The screech of wood against tile made my skin crawl. I should check on Desert, he said lightly, grabbing his napkin. Emily, don't let your mom worry about money. She's been generous. We're fine. But his voice cracked at the edge, just enough for me to catch it. Emily frowned. Daniel, wait. You didn't answer. He was already striding toward the kitchen. I rose slowly, my instincts screaming. Something about the way his shoulders tightened, the way he avoided Emily's gaze. It wasn't the walk of a husband annoyed by questions. It was the walk of a man plotting his next move. From the corner of my eye, I noticed it. The back door, just visible down the hall. Its frame glowed faintly from the porch light outside. Emily, I whispered, my voice low, stay here. Before she could respond, I followed him. The kitchen smelled of basil and baked bread, but the warmth of dinner had vanished. The back door stood ajar, curtains stirring with the night breeze. Daniel, my voice echoed off the tiled walls. No answer. On the counter sat his phone, screen lit with a half-written message. My hands shook as I picked it up. The words burned into me. The mother is suspicious. How soon can we move the rest? My breath caught. My worst fear wasn't paranoia, it was real. That Emily appeared behind me, her face pale. Mom, what does that mean? I gripped the phone tighter. It means we've been played. He's not just hiding things, he's planning something bigger. Her hand flew to her mouth. But where is he now? I glanced out into the dark backyard. At the far end, near the wooden fence, a shadow flickered, broad shoulders moving quickly, slipping into the night. He's running, I said, my voice flat, steady, despite the storm inside me. And people don't run unless they have something to hide. Emily staggered back, shaking her head. This isn't real. This can't be real. I caught her arm, forcing her to look at me. Listen to me, it is real. And if we don't act now, he'll take everything. Not just money, he'll take your life apart piece by piece. Her eyes welled with tears, but behind them, something hardened, the first crack of doubt, finally breaking through her faith in him. In the silence that followed, the sound of the back gate clicking shut echoed louder than any confession could. By the time the police arrived, Emily was sitting at the dining table with her face buried in her hands, the untouched lasagna cooling in front of her. The house, moments ago glowing with candlelight and laughter, now felt like a crime scene frozen. Mid-breath. Detective Harris stepped through the doorway, sharpied his coat still damp from the drizzle outside. He spoke quickly, efficiently, but his gaze lingered on Emily with something like pity. Mrs. Walker, we've been tracking Daniel Carteret. That's even his name for months. You weren't supposed to find out this way. Emily's head snapped up. What do you mean? Tracking him? He's my husband. Harris laid a folder on the table. He's not just your husband. He's a professional con artist. Multiple identities. Multiple states. Multiple victims. I opened the folder with trembling fingers. The photos inside made my breath hitch. Daniel, smiling in different tuxedos, standing beside different brides, wedding photos, driver's licenses, even surveillance images. Same man, different names. Emily reached for the papers, her hands shaking. No, that's not him. It can't be him. Harris's voice was calm but heavy. We've confirmed at least 10 victims across New York, Arizona, Texas, and Illinois. Combined financial losses over $3 million. The words landed like stones in the pit of my stomach. 3 million. My 60,000 suddenly seemed like nothing, and yet everything. Emily gasped, clutching the edge of the table as though it were the only thing keeping her upright. But he said he loved me. He wanted a family, Emily. Harris interrupted gently. Men like him study their targets. They become exactly who you need them to be, until they've drained everything they can. Her tears fell freely now, glistening in the candlelight. And in that moment, I wanted to gather her up, to tell her none of this was real. But the evidence screamed otherwise. I flipped through more documents, bank transfers, aliases, David Collins, Mark Evans, Daniel Carter. Each identity more polished than the last. Each lie designed to pull someone closer while keeping the truth buried. What about the money he moved? I asked, my voice barely steady. Harris's jaw tightened. Wire transfers to offshore accounts, some routed through New York. It's part of a larger network. We're still tracing it. Emily let out a broken laugh. So what was I to him? Just another stepping stone. I placed my hand on hers, squeezing tightly. No, you're my daughter. That's all that matters now, and we'll face this together. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for Emily's quiet sobs and the steady ticking of the clock. Then Harris looked at me directly. Mrs. Walker, I need you to understand something. You weren't just collateral damage. Based on his timing and your financial records, you were the target all along. The air left my lungs. My body felt hollow, as if the floor had given way beneath me. And in that instant, I realized Daniel hadn't simply fooled Emily. He had set his sights on me. The next morning, I found myself sitting across a polished oak table in Robert's law office. The air buzzed with tension. Papers were spread across every inch, bank statements, false IDs, photos of Daniel in a dozen disguises. At the head of the table sat Detective Harris, his sharp eyes fixed on me. Double quotes, Mrs. Walker, he began. We believe Daniel isn't finished. He ran last night, yes, but he didn't get what he came for. I swallowed hard. And what exactly did he come for? Harris slid a paper toward me, my bank statement. The numbers glared up at me, stark and undeniable. Your savings, over $300,000. He knows it's there. Our working theory is that Emily was never the end game. You were. The words made my stomach clench. For a moment, shame burned hotter than anger. I thought of John, of the house I had sold, of every penny I had poured into what I thought was love for my daughter. So what now? I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. Robert leaned forward. Now, Linda, you help us set the bait. Emily, who had been silent until now, sat up sharply. No, absolutely not. She's not doing this. Her eyes were red from a night of crying, but her voice was steel. He's dangerous. I reached for her hand. Sweetheart, I've been a widow for 15 years. I've lived through grief, through silence, through battles you'll never know, and I refuse to let this man steal one more ounce of our lives. Harris's expression softened with respect. It won't be without risk, but Daniel's type, he can't resist unfinished business. If we dangle the right lure, he'll come back. What kind of lure? I asked. Money, Robert said simply. You'll reach out through a channel we know he monitors. Tell him you're worried, that you regret doubting him. Offer to meet, to discuss transferring part of your retirement. If he bites, we'll be waiting. Emily gripped my arm, desperate. Mom, please, don't do this. Let them handle it. I met her tear-filled gaze and felt a strange calm settle over me. For months, I had been sleepwalking through Daniel's performance, too blind to see the truth. But now I finally saw him for what he was, and I knew exactly what I had to do. I'm not just Emily's mother anymore, I said, my voice steady. I'm the one who's going to stop him. The room fell silent. And in that silence, for the first time in years, I felt something I thought I had lost with John's death. Strength. The cafe was small, tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore on the north side of Chicago. Its warm glow and the hiss of the espresso machine almost made it feel safe. Almost. I sat at a corner table with a cappuccino untouched in front of me, my hands wrapped around the cup for steadiness. The detectives were scattered inconspicuously around the shop, reading newspapers, tapping laptops. To anyone else, it was just an ordinary Tuesday, but to me, it was a battlefield. I'd sent the message that morning. Daniel, I'm sorry for doubting you. I want to fix this. Let's talk. I can help with money if it means saving Emily's marriage. The words had tasted like ash as I typed them, but I knew they were the bait he couldn't resist. At exactly 2:05 p.m., the door opened, and he walked in. Daniel, though now, I wasn't sure what name he carried in his head, looked different. His hair was darker, his clothes more casual, as though he were playing the role of a man humbled, but his eyes betrayed him, cold, calculating. Mom, he said softly, sliding into the chair across from me. Thank you for coming. I forced a smile, though my pulse thundered in my ears. Of course, Daniel, I've been worried sick. He leaned forward, his expression a portrait of contrition. Things got out of hand. Emily, she doesn't understand me the way you do. But you've always believed in me. I just need a little more time, a little more support. Every word was honey laced with poison. I studied his face closely, and for the first time, I didn't see the charming Spindler I saw the predator beneath the way, his jaw tightened between phrases. The faint twitch when he mentioned money. My voice was calm, steady. Daniel, what's your real name? For a split second, the mask cracked. His eyes sharpened, cold steel cutting through the veneer. Then he chuckled, shaking his head. You've been listening to the wrong people. Names don't matter. What matters is that I love Emily and you. We're family. I set my cup down with deliberate care. No, Daniel, we're not family. We know everything. His smile evaporated. The predator was fully awake now. He leaned back, his voice dropping into something darker. You think you're clever, don't you? But you have no idea what you're up against. I didn't flinch. You've underestimated one thing, I said quietly. A mother protecting her child. At that signal, Detective Harris rose from his seat. 2 agents moved to the door. Daniel's eyes flicked around the room, realization dawning. Daniel, Carter Harris began. But Daniel was already on his feet, his chair clattering to the floor. This isn't over, he snarled as the agents grabbed his arms, forcing him down. The cafe filled with gasps, the hiss of struggle, the metallic snap of handcuffs. I sat frozen, my hands trembling only after the danger was contained. Daniel looked up at me one last time, his eyes venomous. You'll regret this, he spat. I held his gaze, my voice steady. No, I regret ever trusting you. And with that, the mask of Daniel Carter, whatever his real name was gone. Asterisk, asterisk. 6 months later, the house felt different. Not Emily's old apartment, not the place she had shared with Daniel, but a new home, a small 2-bedroom cottage, just outside Chicago, where the trees whispered softly at night, instead of hiding shadows. I sat on the porch as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of pink and orange. Emily joined me, her hair loose, her smile faint but real. For the first time in months, her laughter wasn't forced. She handed me a letter from one of his other victims, she said softly. A man in Arizona. He lost everything to him, but he said, hearing about Daniel's arrest, it made him feel less ashamed. I unfolded the letter and read the shaky handwriting. Words of gratitude, of solidarity. A stranger thanking us for exposing the predator who had stolen years from his life. My throat tightened. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. You saved me, Mom. I shook my head gently. No, sweetheart. We saved each other. Silence settled between us. Comfortable now, not heavy. The wounds were still there, but they were healing. Daniel, or whatever his real name was behind bars, facing federal charges. The FBI believed they could recover some of the stolen money, but the truth was, money no longer felt like the measure of loss or of victory. What mattered was this moment, my daughter beside me, safe, whole. I thought about the journey, the lies I believed, the trust I misplaced, the shame I carried for selling my house. And yet, out of all that pain came a lesson carved deep into my bones. Emily, I said, watching the sky fade into twilight, do you know the greatest danger isn't losing money? It's silencing the little voice inside that tells you when something's wrong. I ignored mine. I wanted so badly to believe in love. I let it blind me. Never do that. Trust is beautiful, but blind trust is deadly. She squeezed my hand, nodding through tears. I turned toward her, and toward the camera in my mind's unseen faces, listening to my story now. If you're watching this, I said, remember, your instincts are there to protect you. Don't dismiss them. Don't excuse the cracks you see in someone's story. And if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever felt foolish for trusting the wrong person, you are not alone. Share your story. Your voice could save someone else's life. The crickets began their nightly song, and Emily let out a quiet laugh, the sound of a woman reclaiming her life. I leaned back, closing my eyes for a moment. For the first time in years, I felt strong. Not because the storm hadn't touched me, but because I had walked through it and survived.